The clock read 2:18 p.m. on October 14, 1962. Down in the Black Creek Mine, Senior Foreman Tom Wilson knelt by the conveyor belt. The air was thick with coal dust and the sound of machinery was a steady, heavy grind. He was checking the support beams with the junior team. Billy Rourke, 19, fresh out of training. Mike Harris, 21, a dependable cutter, and the oldest of the group, 24-year-old Sam Jenkins. Tom placed his hand against the timber. He felt the low, constant rumble that was normal for 1,000 feet down. He was using a simple hammer to tap the wood, listening for any shift in the sound. He had been doing this for 30 years. He knew the sounds of a safe tunnel. Then the normal sound stopped. The heavy grinding of the cutter machines vanished. A new noise took its place. It was a fast tearing sound, like wet canvas ripping apart, but amplified 100 times. This sound came from deep above them, high in the ceiling. Tom straightened up immediately. He didn't need to shout. The sound told them everything. Get to the access point, now. Tom's voice was calm but carried. He grabbed the emergency radio pack, checking the antenna. The three young men reacted instantly, turning their lamps toward the narrow passage that led back to the main shaft. The tearing sound was followed by the noise of things giving way. It sounded like a massive wooden bridge collapsing. Dust and small rocks began to rain down from the ceiling, kicking up clouds of brown particulate matter. The air instantly grew heavy. Then came the boom. It was not a sharp explosion, but a heavy, crushing impact. A section of the main tunnel, 20 yards behind them, simply folded. The ground shook violently under their boots. The lights flickered and then failed. Tom activated his lamp. The beam showed a wall of pulverized rock and splintered timber where the tunnel used to be. The dust was now so thick that the lamp beam barely pierced it. They were trapped. The primary escape route was gone. The air pressure shifted inside the mine section. It felt wrong, like breathing cotton. Tom knew this feeling. It meant the air circulation systems had failed completely in their section. They had maybe an hour of decent air left before it became dangerous, not counting what was in their emergency packs. Packs on, Tom ordered. We moved forward, away from the collapse point. Find the radio clearance point. He pointed deeper into the abandoned cut, toward a small alcove marked on his internal map. He moved first, pushing through the dust cloud. The three young men followed close behind him. They heard the heavy, persistent sound of settling rock behind them. The tunnel was still breathing in the wrong way. Tom led the group 25 more feet until they reached a small, reinforced cutout. It was an old gear storage bay, about 10 feet long with a solid arched roof. This spot was not part of the active tunnel and had thicker rock layers overhead. He stopped them here. We take stock, Tom said. He spoke slowly, making sure each word was clear over the continuous scraping noise of rock against rock. Billy, check your lamp battery. Mike, check Sam. Sam, you're breathing too fast. Slow it down. Air packs stay sealed for now. He unslung the radio pack, setting it carefully on a dry rock slab. The pack was heavy, military-grade equipment designed to work deep underground. It was their only link to the surface. He pulled out the map case. The mine map was laminated, marked with grid lines. Tom took a deep, careful breath. The air was still holding, but the temperature was climbing. He looked at the three young men. Their faces were coated with dust, their eyes wide and fixed on him. They were scared, but they were following procedure. That was what mattered. They were disciplined. Tom's primary duty was clear: confirm position, establish communication, and conserve resources. He keyed the radio switch. A faint static hissed. He adjusted the frequency dial slowly, stopping when the static became a slightly cleaner signal. Surface. This is downshaft 4, section C17. Repeat, C17. Do you read? He waited a long 30 seconds, listening only to the hiss. Then a voice broke through, distorted but clearly human. C17, this is control. We read you weak. Report status. Report personnel. Tom reported their exact location, grid X44, Y19. He reported 4 personnel, himself, Tom Wilson, and 3 juniors. He reported the main tunnel collapse. The main line is gone. We are blocked completely. The voice from the surface, belonging to Foreman Ed, was tight. Tom, do you have any secondary routes? Negative, Ed. Secondary access is compromised. We're in an old storage alcove. Roof integrity is holding here. We will conserve air. Send coordinates for immediate drilling. We need a rescue shaft fast. Tom looked at his 3 crew members. He had the only operational radio, the only detailed map, and the only long-range lamp. The air packs the younger men carried were 30-minute emergency units. Tom's pack was a 2-hour unit. Tom made the first decision. Mike, Sam, Billy, your packs stay locked until I tell you. Sit down. I will manage the communication. We conserve energy starting now. His primary duty now shifted from survival to command. He had to guide the rescue effort from the inside. The next hour passed in tense, procedural silence, broken only by Tom's short radio transmissions and the distant rumble of the earth. Tom used a piece of chalk to mark his grid coordinates onto a wooden beam. X44, Y19, depth 122 feet. The location was fixed. The surface crew, under Ed's command, began to mobilize the heavy drilling rig, but they needed precision. Hitting the wrong spot could trigger a secondary collapse or miss them completely. The margin of error was tight, less than 10 feet across. Ed, listen close, Tom transmitted. His voice was steady, professional. We are in the old C-17 storage bay. It is directly below the number 6 ventilation shaft marker on the 3rd level map. The rock layer here is solid basalt above us. You need to use the heavy auger. Ed's voice crackled back. We are calculating for a 40-inch rescue bore. Drilling starts in 30 minutes, Tom. We need continuous updates on sounds. You hear anything, you tell us, Tom confirmed. He was now the eyes and ears of the surface crew a mile down. The lives of the 3 young men depended on his clarity and his calm. He took out a small specialized metal rod from his radio kit. This was a sonar listening device, or simply a vibration detector. He pressed the flat base against the solid rock wall. He put the earpiece into his own ear. He sat for 5 minutes, motionless, listening. He heard the metallic grind of the distant conveyor, now faint. He heard the drip of water. Then faintly he detected a deep cyclical thrum. Ed, I have vibration. It is high frequency, low amplitude. Sounds like the rig is warming up, maybe 20 degrees off true north from our position. Adjusting the target zone now. Tom spoke into the radio, his words concise and technical, focused only on the job. Sam Jenkins coughed, a dry, dusty sound. Tom looked over. Sam was leaning against the wall, breathing heavily through his mouth. Sam, take a drink from your canteen. Sip it. Don't waste the water, Tom instructed. He looked back at the map. He saw the path the rescue bore would have to follow. It had to clear the old water channel and the seam of brittle shale just above them. That meant the drill had to come in at a specific angle, calculated to avoid deflection. Tom had the old hand-drawn schematics of this section. He found the angle of the water channel. He transmitted the data to the surface. It was a complex set of numbers, but he read them out, one digit at a time. The air quality was noticeably degrading, making his movements feel heavier. His duty was the information flow. It had to be perfect. Tom stood up and inspected the collapse point again. He aimed his high-powered lamp at the wall of rubble. The light showed how the entire section had become a densely packed, unstable mound of debris. The small gaps and crevices he had noticed earlier were now filled in. He took 3 steps forward, testing the ground with his boot. The floor shifted slightly. This area was not stable. The weight of the mine above was settling, pushing the rock and debris into a solid, impenetrable seal. He had 2 options for his own exit: wait for the drill or find a passage out through the newly formed rubble. The second option was now removed. The tunnel had been too compromised. He would never dig through that solid wall, even with help. Tom walked back to the young men. Mike, Billy, Sam, I need you to move deeper into the alcove. There's a small pocket 50 feet down this passage. It's marked emergency airlock on the map. It's a secondary storage room, smaller, but sealed better. Mike looked confused. But Foreman, if the drill comes here... The drill is coming here, Tom interrupted, his tone firm, but the breakthrough will kick up dust and loose rock. You need to be in the safest, most stable place possible when the bit cuts through. That small room is the designated safe zone. He handed Mike a small portable seismic sensor, a lighter, more modern piece of equipment than his own. When you hear the high-pitched sound, the cutter touching the wall, you activate your emergency packs immediately. Listen for the sound in this device. It will start faint. The crucial factor was the air. The 2-hour supply Tom carried was the longest-lasting oxygen source they had. If the 3 young men were rescued, he could use his final minutes of air to guide the surface crew to their exact location. If they stayed with him, all 4 would be fighting for the last breath. Tom made the final decision. He was staying at the radio post, grid X44, Y19. Go now. Move quickly, but don't rush. No running. Conserve your air. I will keep the radio transmitting right here. I will tell the surface exactly where you are when they break through, Tom ordered. He watched as the 3 men, Mike leading, Sam and Billy following, moved into the deeper passage. Their lamp beams vanished around the bend. Tom was alone again with the radio and the map. The steady, dull sound of the heavy auger starting up from above now permeated the entire rock structure. The vibrations were heavy. The drill had started. Tom reset his focus. The sound of the drill was the most important element now. It was a rhythmic, deep grinding, a sound of heavy steel chewing through solid rock layers 1,000 feet away. It was directional. He placed the metal rod listener against the ceiling, then the floor, then the 2 walls. He moved the rod in slow 2-inch increments, mapping the sound intensity. He was triangulating the drill's exact position relative to his alcove. He reported the findings to Ed on the surface. Ed, you are drifting 3 degrees west. Shift east. Increase pressure. We have solid basalt here. You're 500 feet in. The surface confirmed the adjustment. The new grinding sound was louder, sharper. It was a positive shift. Tom looked at the wall nearest the drill path. He pulled his lamp off its hook and held the lens right up to the rock's surface. He then used the chalk to mark a small, perfect X on the wall. This was the exact center of his alcove. This was where the drill had to come through. He then marked out a series of concentric circles around the X. These circles represented 5-foot radiuses. They were guidelines. He was creating a physical target for himself, a way to visualize the final critical push. The air in the alcove was now thin. Tom took off his helmet and rubbed his sleeve across his brow. Sweat, dust, and coal grime mixed together. His breathing was heavier, the effort required for each transmissions increasing. He looked at his oxygen gauge on his chest pack. He had maybe 25 minutes left of good supplemental air. The 3 young men would have used up their 30-minute packs and were now relying on the sealed residual air in the emergency airlock room. The drill sound intensified. It was no longer a distant thrum. It was a heavy, metallic crunching right above them. The fine dust falling from the ceiling increased. Tom picked up the radio. He transmitted a new instruction focusing on the last 100 feet. Ed, listen. When you hit the shale layer, I want you to drop the speed to half. The pressure must be gentle. If you push too hard, you'll fracture the roof and trigger a cave-in directly on this spot. Half speed, low pressure, slow push. Ed's voice was tight with tension. Tom, we understand. Slow push. We're 30 feet out. Give us constant sound reports. Tom put the listener rod back against the wall. The sound was deafening now, a scream of metal. He could feel the vibrations through his boots, up through his legs. He was sitting directly beneath the target zone. His hand, holding the radio microphone, was steady. Tom watched the chalk mark. The dust was so thick now that the light beam diffused rapidly, making the air look like a thick brown soup. The drill bit hit the brittle shale layer. The sound changed instantly. It went from a steady grind to a high-pitched, uneven screech. The entire alcove groaned. Ed, you hit the shale. Now, slow the torque. Tom shouted into the radio. He kept his voice clear and sharp, cutting through the machine noise. A small shower of fine, powdery rock fragments rained down from the corner near the ceiling. It was working. The crew on the surface had listened and slowed the bore. Tom checked his oxygen pack again. 15 minutes of air remaining. He had to assume the young men were in the airlock, their 30 minutes of breathing air used up. He had to connect the surface crew to their position, not his own. He reached for the map. The airlock was marked 50 feet down the secondary passage. He drew a line from his position to their presumed location. He had calculated the distance. He had to be able to tell the rescue team exactly how far to crawl after they dropped the line. The drill sound was louder than ever. The main bit was within 10 feet of the rock face. Tom picked up a small, heavy piece of coal rock and tapped it firmly against the wall, near his chalk X. Tap, tap, tap. He repeated the sequence, counting the seconds between each tap. Ed, did you hear that? 3 taps, steady beat. That is your final reference signal. You are directly above me. You are 5 feet out, maybe less. Stay on target. Do not adjust, Tom transmitted. He held his breath for a moment, waiting for confirmation. We heard it, Tom. We heard the taps. Preparing the drop line. We're coming through. The relief in Ed's voice was clear. Even through the static, Tom looked toward the dark passage where the young men had gone. He needed to ensure they were the priority. He needed to send the rescue team past him. He activated the small seismic sensor he had given to Mike. He switched his radio to a directional beacon setting, sacrificing long-range communication for a focused, short-burst pulse. He held the antenna directed down the passage toward the airlock. This signal would be picked up by the young men's sensor, confirming the drill was near. The final push began. The metallic scream became a continuous bone-shaking roar. A hairline crack appeared in the rock wall next to Tom's Chalk X. The drill bit punched through the rock wall with a loud tearing crack. It didn't break through Tom's X, but 3 feet to the left, exactly where Tom had estimated the final trajectory would land. A loud hiss of air and a rush of dust erupted from the small hole. The dust was clean, surface air. It rushed into the mine shaft, stabilizing the air pressure immediately. Tom felt the cold air hit his face. It was salvation for the 3 young men. For Tom, it was the beginning of the end of his duty. He quickly grabbed the radio again, speaking directly into the microphone. Ed, breakthrough confirmed. 3 feet left of X mark. You have air access. Listen carefully. We have 3 juniors in the emergency airlock. Passage is 50 feet down, bearing 207 degrees from the breakthrough point. You must send the line past this alcove. Ed's voice was full of relief and command. Tom, we see the breakthrough. We're dropping the line now. You get ready to grab it. Tom looked at his air gauge. 5 minutes. The needle was hovering in the red. He had used his reserve time during the final critical minutes of guiding the drill. He did not reply to Ed's order to grab the line. He had one more duty. He had to ensure the surface team did not stop for him first. He spoke again, his voice now lower but still steady. The passage is clear. They have a sensor. They will hear the line drop. You go to them first. Confirm retrieval. From 50 feet away down the passage, Tom heard a faint sound, a metallic clang followed by a shouted young voice. The 3 young men had heard the line drop. They were moving toward it. They were safe. Tom let out a single slow breath. His work was done. He picked up the radio for the last time. He did not say goodbye. He delivered a final simple status report. Control, this is Wilson. Job complete. Bore success. Personnel retrieval in progress. My position is secured. All systems shut down. Marking end of shift. He took his thumb off the transmission key. He then switched off the radio. He switched off his lamp. The heavy darkness returned. He sat back against the cold, damp rock wall. He did not move. He waited. The 3 young miners, Mike, Sam, and Billy, were pulled from the rescue bore 3 hours later. They were exhausted, suffering from minor dehydration, but otherwise unharmed. They confirmed the voice of Tom Wilson had directed them, even when the drill was breaking through near their heads. The lead investigator, Mr. Robert Thorne, a man known for his cold precision, descended the next morning. His team went through the 40-inch bore and lowered themselves into the C-17 alcove. The scene was exactly as Tom Wilson had described. The drill hole was 3 feet from the center mark. The body of Senior Foreman Tom Wilson was found seated against the rock wall. His oxygen pack was empty. The gauge needle rested firmly on 0. His helmet was placed neatly on the ground beside him. Thorne's team began their procedural survey. They found the heavy emergency radio pack. The antenna was positioned facing the airlock passage. The frequency dial was still set to the dedicated mine rescue channel. The power switch was off. On the dusty rock wall, Thorne's lamp beam illuminated the chalk marks. There was the bold X and the concentric circles marking the 5-foot radiuses. It was a precise, hand-drawn target. Next to the radio, Tom's laminated mind map was spread open. A small, faint line was drawn in pencil, pointing from the alcove, X44Y19, directly to the small square marked Emergency Airlock, 50 feet away. A note was written in the margin, Passage 50 Atmosphere 207 degree. On the console of the radio unit itself, the team found the final evidence. Tom Wilson, before he switched off the set, had keyed in his final report using the small identification marker card. He had used a dull piece of graphite to scratch the following sequence of letters and numbers onto the plastic coating: X44. Y19, duty, complete. The airlock passage was found to be clear. The distance to the young men's position was measured at 51 feet, 3 inches, a 1-foot margin of error from Tom's handwritten map calculation. The official report filed by Thorne 10 days later noted that Foreman Wilson's actions were the decisive factor in the successful retrieval of the 3 miners. His continual calm and accurate technical guidance, combined with his decision to physically separate himself from the rescue zone to ensure the 3 juniors were the sole focus of the drop line, directly resulted in their survival. The report concluded that Tom Wilson, having ensured the success of the rescue bore and the safety of his crew, did not attempt to use the breakthrough to save himself. His final acts were procedural, logical, and executed with professional integrity until his air supply was exhausted.